The San Francisco 49ers are one of the strongest teams across the entire NFL, and each year they have a goal of reaching the Super Bowl and taking home number 6. And this offseason, they made adjustments to their defensive side of the ball that I want to dive a little bit more deeply into. Specifically, I want to talk about the additions of Steve Wilks and the rookie they drafted this year, who I think is going to shock the entire NFL, in Darrell Luter Jr. But first, we need to talk about Steve Wilks, the Niners' new defensive coordinator. He replaces DeMeco Ryans, who had a number 1 ranked defense across most of the year last year, and he looks to repeat the same trends as his predecessors. But there's something that sets Steve Wilks apart from his predecessors, and that's his emphasis on the secondary. Recently, Wilks was even called the godfather of all DBs. So while Steve Wilks' background is different in the position that he emphasizes the most compared to guys like Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans, he also just has a different strategy for coaching the defensive side of the ball than those guys. One thing that sets Steve Wilks apart is how much he actually blitzes. For instance, as the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator in 2019, Wilks dialed up a blitz rate of 35.3%, which was 4th in the NFL, and an 18.7 defensive back rate blitz, which was 2nd in the NFL. In comparison, last year's defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans blitzed 23% of the time in 2022, which was slightly below the league average, coming in at 18th. Wilks also sets himself apart because of what he expects out of his corners. DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh emphasized really not giving up too much deep, while Wilks emphasizes getting up and pressing them and getting in the face and making the opposing quarterback make bad plays when you have such a talented defensive line like the Niners. So in summary, from switching from DeMeco Ryans to Steve Wilks, I expect the Niners defense to become a much more aggressive defense, getting after the quarterback through blitzes, specifically blitzing their secondary players, probably their slot cornerback, either Isaiah Oliver or Samuel Womack, a ton. And not just that, I also envision them making huge plays on the ball due to this increased blitz rate and their reliance on more of a press man coverage. What this is going to do is make it so the quarterback has to speed up his decision making, and once that's sped up, then he has to find the match that his wide receiver wins. He can't necessarily predetermine where he's going to go with the ball because, frankly, he doesn't know which wide receiver will beat which corner. So what's important for this Niners defense going forward is finding corners who have the ability to play press man coverage and lock down any wide receiver in the game. The Niners this year couldn't go ahead and spend big time draft picks on a corner. Rather, they needed to find the best corner they could get in the 5th round. And the player they decided to go with was Darrell Luter Jr. And just because Darrell Luter Jr. went to the small school of South Alabama, don't get it wrong, because he plays big. Darrell Luter Jr. came into the combine and measured 6 foot 190 pounds, and he also impressed with his combine results. Let's go over some of his greatest combine results. His 40-yard dash was 4.46 seconds, but his 10-yard split was even more impressive, in my opinion, of 1.57 seconds. This really is just a measure of that first 10 yards of that 40-yard dash, and that's a measure of the quick burst that the player has. And for me, it's much more important to have that burst as an NFL athlete than a run in straight 40 yards. It's rare you ever see a corner just running straight 40 yards unless it's a go route. What's more important for a corner, especially in press man coverage, is to have long arms and the ability to quickly break down and adjust to what a wide receiver is doing. So now that we understand Darrell Luter Jr.'s measurables, we need to go through his football career up to this point so we understand what type of corner he actually is and if he can potentially start for the 49ers defense. Luter attended Oak Grove High School and played football for 3 years, basketball for 2 years, and track for 1 year. Despite a lot of his teammates being recruited, he wasn't and had to commit to Pearl River Community College. Luter played at Pearl River from 2018 to 2019 and was named second team all-conference as a sophomore. 24/7 Sports actually had him ranked as a 3-star junior college recruit among the top 40 quarterbacks nationally. After grading him from the school, he signed with South Alabama. In Luter's first year with Alabama, he played in 11 games and was the third string cornerback. But despite this, Luter was able to tie the team for lead in tackles among cornerbacks. In 2021, Luter truly had a breakout year. He was placed third in FBS in pass breakups while posting 4 interceptions and only allowing receptions on 26.7% of the passes thrown his way. Pro Football Focus named him the second team All-American selection after this season. As a senior in 2022, he recorded 7 pass breakups and only 1 interception, partially because he just wasn't targeted by quarterbacks nearly as much. Luter then was invited to the Senior Bowl in 2023 and finished his stint in Alabama only allowing 45.3 passes thrown at him while recording 17 pass breakups and only 6 penalties with 5 interceptions. Very impressive. So with Luter's college career out of the way, scouts had the time to dive deeper into Darrell Luter Jr.'s film and examine his weaknesses as well as his strengths and really figure out what he offered as a player. The first thing that I want to say, he's a true ball hawk, and this fits exactly what the Niners have been bringing in. Talanoa Hufunga's a ball hawk, Jair Brown, Tashawn Gibson. They want guys who can play the ball, and Luter Jr. definitely is one of them. And he has great instincts as well, which can be said the same thing about those guys that I also mentioned. His length is also absurdly long. His long arms are exactly what you want out of a corner to play press man coverage. But there are perhaps some areas of concern, like his long speed is pretty mild, I suppose, for a corner, 4.46. It seems extremely fast to most people, but corners sometimes run low 4.4s. Overall, Luter Jr. is excellent. As a man defender, he utilizes his arm length to jam receivers at the line of scrimmage, and that disrupts the timing. And as I mentioned, that's a horrible result for a guy that also has great ball skills. Luter also is an above average athlete, but may struggle against extremely fast wide receivers. Take Danny Gray and Darrell Luter Jr. one-on-one, just running a streak. Danny Gray might burn him. So then the question comes, can Darrell Luter actually start for San Francisco? And my answer is yes, definitely. Luter Jr. is much bigger than their other outside corner that started for them last year in Lenoir. He's more of the prototypical corner that Steve Wilks likes. And let's talk about Steve Wilks' selection. Wilks brought in this guy. He didn't bring in Lenoir or someone else the Niners already had. So this is really Steve Wilks' guy, and he envisions him being the long-term starter possibly for the Niners. And for me, I wouldn't be surprised that Luter Jr. actually could take a step up and become that starter. The reason why is throughout his college tape, he looks like an NFL player. And the big reason why he slipped down in the draft is only because of the level of competition he's played against. I think he's a much underrated player that will do great things for the Niners, if not this year, in the foreseeable future. But these are just my thoughts on Darrell Luter Jr., and I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. It would also mean a ton to me if you liked and subscribed. Thank you guys so much for watching.